and welcome everyone. This is the All 12 Signs video series for the Gemini Full Moon that's happening on the 27th of November 2023. I will be reading for Sagittarius and Scorpio in this video. My name's Chloe. I work with card divination, astrology, and I channel energies through my body. It's just one of the ways that I channel. As you can see, my hands are moving around right now. This is independent of my conscious thought, drawing in energies from different dimensions to help us heal, help us clear stuck energy, and open up portals to source to get us in alignment with our soul's frequency. For those of you who know your time of birth, I really recommend checking out the first house of your natal chart. This is the rising sign. This is where your ascendant is. All the signs will be as if they are in the first house. So the astrology will link closest to the rising sign. However, this does not invalidate you looking at any other part of your chart. Where just look to where that sign, where your sun, your moon is, perhaps where your Mercury is, because we're dealing with Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. Just look to wherever that falls in your chart. Look to the house that it's in, the themes of that house, and then apply those themes to the messages that come through. It's as if all of that energy has now moved to the first house. Right, I'm going to keep this introduction short and sweet, and I'm going to kick off with Sagittarius. Sagittarius rising. How you doing, Sag? For those of you tapping into the Sagittarius energy and it doesn't fall in your first house, look to the house that it does fall in, look to the themes of that house and apply those themes along with the any astrological points you've got there, any celestial bodies, to the messages that come through. It's as if that Sagittarius energy with all the connotations of your natal chart have now moved to the first. Right, regardless of whether Sagittarius is your rising sign or not, this full moon is opposite Sagittarius, right? The sun will be in Sagittarius at the time. The moon will be opposite in the sign of Gemini. Oppositions are ruled by Saturn. This is about finding integrity of the two halves being a whole, right? So finding your own authority, your own integrity, while still being able to work with others, right? The ideal with opposition, sometimes it really highlights where we prioritize one area of our lives over the other. And what we really want to do with an opposition is make sure that both sides of the same coin, even if they may feel very different, are working together. You're not invalidating the other experience and finding that happy ground in the middle. I always like to point to this infinity ring that I put on a couple of years ago in sort of commitment to the universe, source, existence. And it's so imagine this is the opposition, so one side to the other, but actually everything is in constant ebb and flow, and it's rather than sort of polarizing, we want to blend and we want to bring a sense of commitment. Saturn can often be linked into commitment with this or with the opposition. So we've got a full moon happening in the sign of Gemini, as I said, opposing your Sagittarius energy. So it can highlight some things where you're out of balance, but I will get on and talk about the full moon in a little bit. I've skipped a step. So I'm pulling cards for 3 piles. The first pile is the energy leading up to this full moon. So this is from the new moon in Gemini that we had in Gemini season. Everything you've been working on, those seeds that have been planted, the culmination of that particular part of the cycle. And so this is the lead up to that culmination point. This is the journey that we'll be uncovering that you've been working on. And the second pile is the energy download of the moon itself. And this is, for me, lunations are portals. They are download points, right? Whether it's a new or a full moon, because I work with then from the full moon, that energy then takes us up to the new moon in that sign next year. So the second part is like the energetic download, the upgrade, the new frequency that's coming in. Oh, my toes are wiggling at that one. That will then unfold moving forward. So that's the second pile. If you want a more detailed understanding about what this moon is all about, i.e. what energy download is coming through, I've done a collective reading and that's already out, that's already up, where I break down the astrology in way more detail. This is actually quite a complicated moon. oops daisies, we've had for the last couple of months, it's not that the moons have been simple, but there's a lot going on with this one, so I really do break it down in a lot more detail in that collective reading. So if you want a sort of a bigger understanding of what that second pile means, I do recommend it. I get a bit more esoteric in the collective readings. I love them. I talk about the soul's journey, some more channeled messages come through, as well as this collective tarot. You see here there's some oracle cards. There's quite a few here under my phone where I'm looking at the chart, and so I'll be doing a separate, and I pulled those before I did the collective reading, and I'm going to be doing a separate oracle reading after the event, so it's like tying everything up. So if you're watching this after this full moon, you're not missing out on this energy, because this is more linked into a longer term 6-month cycle of unfolding in this area of your life. Sagittarius risings, because this is happening on an angular house, right? Angular houses are 1st, 4th, 7th and 10th, right? All the mutable signs are having this on angular houses. I would recommend checking out the collective reading, because when we have transits on angular houses, these are the pivot points of the chart. They mark sort of like the foundational cross which the rest of the chart operates around. So you might want to go and check that out to get sort of a deeper understanding about what that second pile is all about, because as I said, there's a lot going on. It's very playful, this moon, but also serious. There's also an element of faith, and there's an element of a higher perspective coming in while still engaging in the curiosity and the playfulness of Gemini. And so the third pile is how all this energy is going to manifest moving forwards. I will also be pulling a card for Venus conjunct the South Node. That's happening either on the 28th or 29th of November, depending on where you live. So this is not long after this full moon that Venus will come into conjunction with the South Node. And why is that important? Well, Venus rules Libra and therefore rules what's going on with the South Node at the moment. So this is like the basically, not necessarily the boss, but certainly the ruler of the realm coming in and saying, hey, this is my agenda, right? This is what we're working with. So I'm going to be pulling a separate card at the end for that for you. Right, Sagittarius rising. Where is this happening? This is happening in your 7th house. This is the house opposite the house of the self, where the sun will be. This is intimate relationships, one-to-one relationships. This can be business partners, intimate friends, long-term committed relationships, romantic relationships, and one-to-one clients, as well as your relationship with source. That's certainly how it shows up for me and what I've seen in other people's charts. That it's that one-on-one dynamic. Like, what's important about that one-on-one dynamic to you? I've got an air sign there as well. Mine's Aquarius, and I really like, the thing that I thrive on when I'm on a one-to-one dynamic is talking about big picture ideas, right? I find it difficult to do small talk, and I really am nourished by those bigger conversations. So it's like the framework in which those one-to-one relationships show up and what's important to you in relation to that. And we've got a full moon here, so this is sort of like a big completion energy of what you've been working on over the last 6 months, as well as, okay, so right, I noticed that there are 3 main themes that show up with full moons. That none of these themes can happen. All 3 can happen. Maybe 1, maybe 2. Right? It all depends. I've seen it show up in numerous different ways, but these 3 themes seem to be the most consistent. So the first theme is trigger time. Why is this? Why do full moons have us howling? Why do police stations, hospitals and schools get a bit rowdy around full moons? Why does everyone seem a little bit or more mad? And well, this is because the moon, which is our unconscious mind, our intuitive space, our emotional body, how do we nourish others? How do we nourish ourselves? But most importantly, in terms of the trigger, where are our needs being met or not being met? And we've got the full light of the sun on the moon. So our unconscious mind is its most visible, with the sun of the clarity, the vision, the purpose, the animation, the will, the conscious element of the sun shining fully on the moon. And so this is when our unconscious mind is really loud and proud. And so I find and this is why sometimes if you're not necessarily doing the integration work, right, this is when all those deep unconscious needs that you've been suppressing can get really, really, really loud, and you can get triggered and just feel they're like big energy around that. So I see this as a blessing. I see this as an offering from the sun and the moon, because so often it can bring up something that's deep in your unconscious mind that you may have taken a little longer to get to. You may have never gotten to it. And the moon will come along with the sun and say, hey, here, beloved, here is this thing that is going to potentially cause you a little bit of disruption, in order for you to bear witness to it, to observe it, to have that light of the sun shine on it, in order for you to then work with it and integrate potentially over the next 6 months to the new moon in Gemini, or just a little, or however long it takes, really. And even though it can be disruptive, even though it can be difficult, it's highlighting something that you need to work with and sit with, and not shame and not blame and not isolate, and really learn to integrate that shadow work. So that's one of the things that may show up even if it's difficult. The second thing is a situation that previously would have triggered you, previously would have set you going off, doesn't, right? So this is when the universe will come along. So it's usually situations that you've been working on for a while. And usually when we do that, we tend to do it mostly in the mental sphere, right? Yes, we're seeing more holistic healing going on in the world, but still the easiest route that we lean into can be our mind, and figuring out and working it out. However, we really do need to incorporate the body, the emotional body, our soul, all in one. And this is what the universe will come along, and it's usually when you're very ready to engage in this situation. Like, I find the universe doesn't want to reinforce trauma responses. It really doesn't. Like, that's not the net aim of the game. Even if sometimes situations do that, it's usually for a bigger unfolding later on. So it's so a situation that is very similar to a previous one, that would have triggered you or created a trauma or created a limiting belief, can crop up, and then you physically walk through that situation, right? And it's allowing your physical body to go, wait a minute, guys, everybody, we seem to be fine. We seem to be a-okay. And then you then that energy gets released. I certainly had it over the Pisces full moon. I had it really quite loudly. I wasn't expecting it to show up, and it showed up. And I found that I was very much at peace with what was going on, even though in my mind I was like, this is bullshit. Excuse my French, well, excuse my English. I am British, so we do swear a lot. I've really been trying not to, but sometimes it's just a good, I do love a good swear word. Anyway, right, so I very much felt inner peace with what was going on, while still acknowledging that what was going on was nonsense, but it was nothing to do with me. So it helped release some energy, and then it also revealed other things that were linked into that particular trauma response, that needed more finessing, right? So the overall energy got expanded and cleared, but then it highlighted these smaller little nuances. And I find the more that we do that inner work, the more that it wouldn't necessarily just be the big sweeping things that get cleared out, but then the finer details that need to be released. So so that's what can come up with that. And then the third is that completion energy. The moon is at its fullest, at its peak, and it can be like a real highlighting of your needs being met, of being nourished, of nourishing yourself, of your intuition being really heightened at this full moon. Lots of energy, lots of vibrancy, lots of activation codes going on. So that's the three main things that can show up with the full moon. So we're dealing with the 7th house, right? This is opposite your 1st house, the house of self. This is how you embody your sun or your moon in your actions and your deeds. This is your vitality, your body, your appearance, your character. And it's often how other people see you. This is very much your house, the 1st house. And this moon is happening in the house of other, the 7th house, right? As I said, that one-to-one dynamic, that level of intimacy that we can get from other people, or source energy, or even with yourself as well. Sometimes I find that 7th house is a reflection on what nourishes you. If we're multifaceted beings, if we incorporate that 7th house energy inward, we're feeding that feedback loop of the self and the other being one, right? We are both separate and we are both combined. So, full moon in the 7th house, what's going to potentially show up? Well, this could be you wanting to spend more time, or in a one-to-one basis with people. If you're in a romantic relationship, perhaps spending time with them, or with your intimate friends, or with source energy. You could be spending a lot of time in meditation, connecting and having a chat with source. And this also can be a release of old trauma responses and limiting beliefs around the seventh house, around who you are in that relationship dynamic. What is it that you're asking for it? Is there an element of codependency there? And really sort of releasing a lot of blockages. We've got the box card, which is one of the oracle cards, which very much like the absolute maze of limitations that we put ourselves in. One of my favorite things is to push people's limitations in a healthy way. When I feel like somebody's saying something that is fact to themselves, but I've witnessed that that's not actually the true nature of who they are, and they're in fact confining themselves to a certain response mechanism, a certain trauma, a certain limiting belief that they think is theirs, but is actually linked into something that's got nothing to do with them. And so often the seventh house can show up in that way. There can be elements of loneliness, there can be this need to merge with another person, to not feeling complete of being the self. So with this opposition, you know, things are going to be highlighted with the sun in your sign, of a vision and clarity of who you are, and the importance of that, and the clarity and the will of that in relation to one-to-one relationships. So as I said, there can be an element of codependency, there can be an element of self-sacrifice, and making sure that this is an alignment where you're in balance with yourself and the other. It's not that one is taking the priority over the other. It is a real harmonization of this energy, and very playful as well, this full moon. So really just finding fun in discourse and collecting ideas and sharing and being playful, and going on lots of different adventures and getting stimulated by lots of different things, perhaps on a one-to-one basis. This could also be a completion, you know, I talked about business partners as well as one-to-one clients, a sort of leveling up of your engagement with other people, like, and what you bring to the table. Can be a level up of their response by frequency to you as well. So lots of things with the seventh house. I'm just thinking of the last seventh house full moon that I had. Ended up spending it with an Aquarius, one-to-one. It was just a vibrational. Is a friend of mine, a vibrational frequency that was it was just sort of highlighting the future, right? Highlighting possible frequencies that come in. So you just might find yourself with a Gemini, right? Hanging out with a Gemini or someone with strong Gemini placements, particularly with the seventh house, because it is that one-to-one dynamic. Right, what else do I want to talk about? Do we want to talk about astrology? Okay, so we've got the sun over in Sagittarius in your sign, so potentially over your ascendant, or if you've got a sun or a moon in Sagittarius. And so the sun is shining a light on something, perhaps an old frequency of self that distorted the importance, or as I said, the prioritization of one-to-one relationships. So it was actually hindering your expression of self. Something can come up around that is then going to be released and let go of. And also potentially a part of yourself in your embodiment that may have blocked the deepening of one-to-one relationships. In relation to triggers, as I said, something may come up in those dynamics where it's actually giving you the space to stand up for yourself and be present, and not necessarily fall into that trigger, into that limiting belief. So yeah, overall, this is a very playful moon. It's also kind of serious because we've got aspects with Saturn going on. Right, so let's start talking about the astrology and how this is all working together. So Gemini, ruled by Mercury. Where is Mercury? So therefore, wherever the ruler is of a sign is impacting what's going on with the signs that it rules. So we want to look to where Mercury is, that rules this moon, and Mercury is currently in your sign, Sagittarius. So there, and it's very close to the galactic center, and the galactic center is the astrological point that is linked into the center of the Milky Way. So Mercury conjunct there is going to, two aces, like this. So Mercury's very, very close to that degree, which is 26 degrees of Sagittarius, which seeing okay. Excuse me, sorry, the deck just wanted to do something. I don't know really what, but We'll see what happens with that one. So Mercury, the sort of collector of information, the bringer of flow in your first house, like really finding details and understanding of expression of self, right? Conjunct the galactic center. So we're getting downloads from the center of the Milky Way, which is closer to the center of the universe, which has a higher vibrational frequency of downloads coming through into Mercury that's then feeding into this new moon, this full moon. So it feels like there's a real embodiment of self from a higher vibrational level that is then going to have an impact on what this moon's all about in terms of your one-to-one relationships. So we've also got, I'm going to touch on all of these things very briefly. As I said, there's a lot going on, and I do want to mention sort of the big things just so you get an idea of what this moon's about. But as I said, I went into way more detail in the collective reading. Mercury's at 24 degrees and it's making an exact square with Neptune at 24 degrees, and this is in your fourth house of your home, your roots and your foundations. And for those of you regulars who watch the Scorpio new moon video, we know that Neptune was trining that new moon. And so bringing about a new reality, a new frequency from source energy in through a wisdom and inspiration and expansion. And now we've got Mercury square Neptune, which is manifesting the knowing, this sense of knowing with Mercury in Sagittarius of having faith in this new reality that's coming through, that's coming from your roots and your foundational space, right? So giving a different framework in which for you to work on, as well as being with that square to the galactic center that's really allowing this big portal to be activated that is breaking up old frequencies and bringing in new ones. Not only that, Mercury is like the north and south node are at 24 degrees of Libra and Aries respectively, right? So we've got a lot of 24. We've got 6, which is a healing number, right? Healer, life path. And it, you know, it's why I say like this Gemini full moon should really just be pure play, especially with Sagittarius, that Jupiterian generosity, that expansion, that joviality. But there's some seriousness going on because Mercury, the ruler of this moon, is making positive, soft aspects to the south and north nodes. So it's getting a lot of wisdom and inspiration from that sort of more longer term eclipse cycle, and really getting some alignment of where we're headed and what we're transmuting in the south node. So fueled with that galactic center energy, fueled with the magic of Neptune being in Pisces in your fourth house, all feeding into this new moon. And so we've got Libra and Aries, that's in your fifth house of creation energy, Aries energy, and Libra, which is in your hopes and your dreams. So we've got a lot of air and fire going on here, Sag. And so it's very yang energy, very extrovert, very action orientated, instigating a new fragment of frequencies into your dynamic of self and other, coming from a place of creativity of where you're headed, and from your hopes and your dreams where Venus and the south node are refining them and making sure that this new frequency is in alignment with the kind of vibrational frequency of relationships that you want to draw towards you. Super powerful stuff, really powerful stuff. Now, because we're dealing with Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius, we want to look to where Jupiter is, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Jupiter is in Taurus, which for you is in your sixth house of work, health and routines, bringing expansion and wisdom and elevation to the way that you work. How do you take care of your health? How do you take care of your routines? And now, so Jupiter's influencing this sense of self, these downloads that are coming up in order and with the sense of other. And so Jupiter is providing support and wisdom of making sure that these relationship dynamics that you're in are in alignment with the way that you work and taking care of your health, that aren't draining your health, that aren't getting in the way of routines that are really important to you. Again, that self-sacrificing energy is being cleared out. of really being able to have a sense of focus in more of a holistic incorporation of the whole chart in relation to who you are, what does these relationships mean, an elevation of those relationship dynamics, a clearing away of trauma responses and limiting beliefs that's blocking us from being able to have healthy boundaries and healthy dynamics when it comes to the one-to-one. And so Taurus, who's Taurus? Ruled by Venus, and Venus is over in Libra, which, as I said, is in your 11th house of hopes and dreams, friends, groups, and alliances. So basically the whole chart at the time of this lunation is being ruled by Venus. So as I said, wherever the ruler is of a sign is impacting the signs that it rules. So if we do the little energy transfer of full moon in Gemini, ruled by Mercury. Where's Mercury? In Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. Where's Jupiter? In Taurus. Who rules Taurus? Venus. Now everyone else in the chart is being governed by Venus. Like the buck is stopping there energetically. So all of this alignment, this completion, these download energies that are then going to unfold are linked into you bringing about a sense of value and appreciation and creativity around your hopes and your dreams, right? And making sure that these relationship dynamics are in alignment with that. Right, Saturn. So Neptune is square Mercury, and Saturn is square the Sun and Moon, Mars and Ceres. So we've got this sense of activation codes coming from a space of integrity. We've also got the Saturn card here. Oh, hello. We've got the Saturn card. And Saturn, yes, is hard work, due diligence. You've had some more responsibility in your 4th house, reconnecting with ancestors, strengthening your foundations. And it's also calling you to understand your own authority, to understand your own commitment to self, and with the integrity that is being developed in your roots and foundations, then that builds on your legacy. So Saturn is squaring this Sun and the Moon. It's activating these download codes coming in. That's making sure that there's a sense of tethering of the adult in the room, right? Of really making sure that we're not flying too, we're not being too distracted. There's an element of weight coming in, a seriousness, a sense of responsibility with this new activation, and that can be responsibility to yourself as well as to others around you. So there's a lot going on with this moon. And as I said, playful, there's an element of faith, but there's also an element of responsibility, and they're all coming together. And I feel like those are the sort of 3 key words that, we should apply in every area of our life. Be playful, be curious, but have that sense of faith and knowing, so we're not fully embodying fear, and also be responsible and be mature and put in the hard work. It's not a bad thing, of like really acknowledging the growth and the expansion that we can do as individual souls. Right, okay, they put the deck down, which means all the cards that wanted to come out have come out. We just had the Yang Day action side of the reading, the go, the stimulation, everything, the stuff that's done in the day, the extrovert. And now we're moving into a little bit of yin night rest side of the reading, because I'm going to go quiet. I'm going to soften my mind and allow the energies to move through me. So they're going to move the cards around, do some energy work, and then they'll put them into the 3 piles, and I'll come back round and I'll incorporate the tarot into the astrology. I call you to soften your mind as well. Let all that information settle in your unconscious mind. Don't try and force all that information. You've just had a lot, and then just see what intuition comes up for you while I go a little quiet. I try and not speak. Sometimes I just can't help myself if something comes up, but it is where it is what it is. Okay. Okay, Sag. So we have, oh, let me move this back up again. We have the Five of Swords crossed with the Four of Swords, crowned with the Ace of Swords. Love this combination. Right, Five of Swords. This, for me, of all the cards in the deck, this is the one where I'm like, oh, that's such a sticky, ugly energy. It is part of the human condition, but compared to, say, like the Death card or the Tower card, I'm like, not sure. Why is that? Well, it's very jagged. There's a lot of smug energy here. It's kind of like the bully victim mode, okay, which we see throughout the whole of the species. This figure has won at something, but they're actually carrying the Three of Swords. Now, I think we all know what the Three of Swords looks like. It's one of the most, even if you're not into tarot, like it's one of those cards where you're like, I get what that means. That's three swords in a heart. So this figure has won, but they've won the Three of Swords. They've won that heartbreak. They've won that grief, that sort of that pain, that separation of the heart from its own being, right? So winning at what cost? And then we've got over here, we've got the two figures, and they're feeling very sorry for themselves, right? Understandably. But this is kind of highlighting the victim bully mentality, right? Bullies were bullied at home. Just it's very rare for that trauma to not beget trauma. And then the victim mentality, we can get stuck in that. We can feel sorry for ourselves. It's a fear mentality. This is all fear, and this is mental, right? So this can be also your mind talking to yourself and having a certain narrative about how relationship dynamics show up. Like perhaps, through certain frameworks that it's created situations where you end up finding that you've maybe won an argument, but at what point? Or you've created a situation where I'm not just putting it just on you. This can be vice versa as well. This can be people in your life, in the one-to-one dynamics, who come along and you find yourself in this space, or you find yourself in this space, whatever it is. Like, we are both of these things, right? We've all been this and we've all been that in one way or another, and it's because we're that we end up being that. And it's just it's about power, it's about control, but overall this is kind of a very discordian energy, right? That can either have been showing up in your relationship dynamics or showing up in your mind. And so often when they show up in your mind, they then recreate in a relationship dynamics. I remember I was living with somebody and I was in quite a negative spiral space. I was really, really judging myself quite harshly. And so when Saturn was moving through my 7th house, and this figure who was an Aquarius was mimicking what was going on in my mind in a way that was so perverse, that was so beyond. It just didn't feel real. It felt very. It felt like. Sometimes we get grabbed by the astrology where it becomes very loud and is exaggerated and accentuated, and it's kind of going beyond the natural dynamic of things. So that was so loud. I can't remember why I was saying that. Oh yeah, the mirroring, right? The mirroring of our mind in our relationship dynamics. And so what I like about this combination is the fact that you've got it with the Four of Swords crossing it. So this for me is, so you see here, and I like that they're this way round, because you see here, this figure, the Three of Swords are here as well. They have come out of the heart. You are being able to contemplate and be in meditation over this dynamic, right? And working through this. This is in a church, so it's an acknowledgement of you've been at this place, at this space of being held by something bigger than you. You've been given the space in order to contemplate what this means for you. And underneath is the Ace of Swords. Right, and what do we have here? The Ace of Swords. So this is being able to find truth. The fact that it's crossing it in this way is saying to me, so this is about rest, okay? That it hasn't all been rest. It hasn't necessarily been, so say those of you who, it's not like you've disconnected yourself entirely from one-to-one relationship dynamics, but so there's still action involved, there's still activity, but you've been giving yourself some space to be able to say, what is this about? What does this mean? How do I unpick this? How do I unravel it? How do I find my truth? And then you get the Ace of Swords. So this is your clarity, your truth, a renewal of this framework from a higher perspective, right? And there's a sense of victory. We've got the crown here. There's a sense of authority. and really bringing in a real sense of, you know, as I said, clarity, but that sort of that clear source energy truth of yourself, that's been sort of like cutting through a lot of the tangled mess that we can have in our space and in our understanding of self, right? So I like how we've got truth coming up, because so often when we are in contemplation of relationship dynamics, it can get twisted because it's just compounding on perhaps self-worth issues or blown up ego issues that then get distorted. This is saying whatever's come through on this particular journey, there is a clarity, there is a truth to it, that is sort of very objectively that rather than subjectively that. For the energy of this moon itself, well, we've got the end and the beginning of the major arcana. I don't think this has happened in any of the readings that I've done on this channel. So we've got the world card. This is Saturn. The world card for me, yes, it's a completion of a certain energy, but that completion is activating a knowing of self, right? This figure traditionally was a hermaphrodite, so it's an acknowledgement of the blending of the masculine and feminine and how we have that within us. And, you know, you see here there's a 0 here, but it's also a boundary. For me with Saturn, it is about boundaries get put up in order for us to break down those boundaries to the core principles. And then we find out we actually have less boundaries. Interestingly enough, the rings of Saturn are in fact dissolving, right? So there is this element of Saturn wants you to be in your own authority. And that when you are in that space, in your own integrity, certain trigger situations that may crop up, whether it's in your mind or externally, aren't having the same impact on you anymore. So you're not having to be like, no, I can't have that in my life, right? You can be like, well, that's just a thing that's happening. I'm going to carry on with my own being. This is very much, I'm going to be me, and I'm going to know myself, and I'm going to live from a space of heart-orientated authenticity when it comes to those relationship dynamics. So with the world, for me, it's like the more you know yourself, the less boundaries you need, the more the world opens up to you. Right, the more that you're in ease and in flow, and it's coming with the Fool. So it's saying, yes, there's a completion of a certain framework, right, but it's also building and bringing in a new dynamic where you are more confident and comfortable being yourself in these relationships, and having serious relationships show up. Right? Saturn is serious. Saturn's maturity. So this is saying that the relationship dynamics that are showing up, not just about you, but how they're then reflected back to you, is there's a seriousness, there's a level of commitment, and there's a level of openness in a way of that flexibility of the playfulness of Gemini, right? Of all the possibilities, all the stimulations, but there's still a groundedness in the seriousness of Saturn with the Fool. The Fool operates from a heart space. The Fool is all about the life journey and the curiosity around that life journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly, not having it pulled down into the 5 of Swords, but being like, that's an experience, and not letting it have a hold over you, not letting it bully you, and allowing yourself to move forward. You see here the mountains in the background. This also represents that the Fool operates from a higher perspective. This is saying that there's a new journey of love and curiosity and exploration in the world that is being activated with this full moon for those relationship dynamics. We think about source energy. It's also a recalibration of your relationship with source that's coming, allowing you to be you, and also bringing in a sense of openness and love coming in. I really like this. How is this all manifesting moving forwards? We've got the Ace of Pentacles and we've got the 6 of Wands. So the Ace of Pentacles, got 2 aces. So this really is marking a renewal coming from a higher perspective. Right, so the Ace of Swords and the Ace of Pentacles, they both have mountains. So mountains here and mountains through the portal. That represent a higher perspective. Also a lot of abundance here, right? So for me, this is new earth. This is an offering from the universe that this is unfolding. So you are feeling in a perpetual state of new earth, right? That's the higher perspective with the enjoyment of the 3D realm. And this is coming with, and this also could be unfolding moving forward, a elevation of any relationship dynamics that you have already, right? A renewal of those in the physical realm, tying in from the multi-dimensional realm as well as an offering of a new experience come in, right? This could be a new relationship dynamic. This could be new clients come in, a business partner, an offering from a friend to upgrade your relationship dynamic, whatever that is. It's certainly an upgrade. And with the Six of Wands, love this for the 7th house, right? So as I said, so often we can prioritize the other over the self. This is an acknowledgement. This is recognition. This is validation. This figure is about to be celebrated for the things that it's done. You notice here we've got the wreath of the world and the wreath here, so a sign of victory, right? That this figure is about to go and celebrate. The people around them really appreciate what it is that they do and what it is that they've done, and they are getting that validation. So not only is it this sort of this liberation energy of this you energy, but also getting recognition, getting appreciation. I mean, we all like to be seen, don't we? We all like to be valued by others, and in return nourish and value them. So that's a really nice combination of cards of this freshness, but also saying, but you're not going to be ignored. You're not going to be dismissed, right? Of your needs aren't going to be dismissed. And so this is kind of saying that these relationship frequencies are allowing that sense of what am I trying to say? I had something in my brain and it's gone. All right, I'm going to leave it and see if it pops up. Right, I'm pulling a card for Venus conjunct the South Node in the sign of Libra. They will get an overall message or a tool in which to activate what's going on with that conjunction. What does it mean for you, Sagittarius? And that's in your 11th house of hopes and dreams, friends, groups and alliances, and reaping the benefits from your 10th house. So this could be bonuses coming in from work, from your one-to-one clients, and recognition of the work that you put in on a one-to-one basis with that level of intimacy. If we're thinking about Venus holding court here in your 11th house, also frequencies of in alignment with your hopes and your dreams as well, that's bringing in a new growth and a new ability to bring that multi-dimensional high vibrational frequency into your hopes and your dreams with the people that you interact with. And there's an element of celebration of perhaps a hope and dream coming to fruition, because there is a level of commitment here with that Saturn card and the fall of starting on a new commitment level, and then the sort of recognition and validation of who you are in those relationships. Right, one card please. Oh, no, that's 3. That was the 5 of Pentacles, 4 of Pentacles, and the 2 of Swords. Oh, no, I don't want that one either. It's just making me, but they were kind of coming up in reverse, and it felt like a release away from scarcity, of holding on to certain hopes and dreams that are actually recreating a scarcity mindset. And that 2 of Swords of there being, you've had to have a pause over certain things, and it just feels like something's being activated and released. The decks and the energies have been very independent in these readings, so do bear with me. Like sometimes when my hands are moving around, when they're putting the cards back, it's not me, it's the energies, and so we'll just have to keep going. But yeah, going back to those 3 cards, it really felt like that was a clearing out. Like the South Node often clears out things. It can be very draining wherever it is. I mean, it all depends, it goes through phases. That it's a refinement of those hopes and dreams. As I said, I've done a all 12 sign series for the nodal axis. So you might want to go check that out. We got the 6 of Pentacles. Okay, so this is Venus conjunct the South Node. So this is kind of like the energy that's being downloaded at the time. This is about interesting. So this follows that 5 of Pentacles that I saw that was in reverse, right? So that's feeling left out in the cold. That's feeling not supported. And this is the supported card, right? I said that was clearing out. And that there was that 2 of Swords in reverse of like having to go inward, but now movements happening. This is about being given something from a higher power that then allows you to then go and support yourself and go and do what it is that you need to do. So something is being put into balance. This card used to show up loads with Saturn, of this sense of this higher power giving you something that is supportive, that there's a sense of you are being supported at this time, and with that hopes and dreams, friends, groups, alliances, reaping the benefits from your 10th house. This could be like a bonus that's coming in with that South Node. But what I'm really getting is a refinement and understanding of your hopes and your dreams, and having the energy, whether it's an energy download, whether it's an actual thing that happens to you in your life, where you're going to be getting a boost that helps you then be able to start the process of activating that hope and dream. Right, let's get some clarifiers. This is the first light tarot. All the decks in the description box. This is, let's see what wants to come through. We've got healing, service. They're focusing on service. It says service to others, but it feels like this is healing for you. Yes, we need, right. So we don't have the Ace of Cups here, but one of the phrases that really helped me with my level of, I've got my moon in the 7th house, so I'm nourished by other people and my service to other people, and it wasn't necessarily codependency, but it just meant that I was giving from my cup, not my saucer, constantly. That was what I was very intuitively driven to do, and I was burnt out, and this phrase, give from your saucer, not from your cup, really resonated with me. And I then so it's like give from the overflow, because if you give from your cup, you're depleting yourself. And then I took it a little bit step further of like, because that can feel really selfish when you're not necessarily giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, that when you're giving from your cup, i.e. when you're depleting yourself, you're giving from a space of lack. So you're putting lack energy out into the world. Whereas if you give from your saucer, when you are right with yourself, you've got to think about Jupiter in your work, health and routines of making sure that those relationship dynamics are in alignment with you taking care of yourself, that you're giving from a space of abundance. So I feel like that was a powerful message, and that needed to come out. And that just helped me, because I always used to have a lot of guilt of like not immediately dropping everything that I was doing if someone had a problem, and it would usually be a problem that they'd repeatedly hadn't really done the work themselves, but I'd be like the first one there and being like, what can I do, how can I facilitate? And I actually realized no, that's not healthy for anybody. But it took me ages because I'd have so much guilt. That was certainly a long journey, and that particular phrase really helped. That it works for the other person as well in the relationship, that you don't want either party depleting themselves. Yes, sometimes in those dynamics one person is just gonna be giving a little bit more than the other, but it's an ebb and flow where you're constantly in that, rather than you're constantly in a state of giving and receiving, both the other and the self and the other, that is allowing that flow, as I said, from the infinity symbol, and without just being one part. Okay, that's gone. So weird channeling sometimes. Like, it took me ages to realize that a lot of when I speak is channeling, and that sometimes things will just, the moment it sort of the connection stops, like the brain just goes completely blank. Right, final card for Sagittarius. Interestingly, I just saw moderation at the bottom of the deck, which everything in moderation, including moderation. So that's like, be moderate with your giving, be moderate with your taking, and all of that. So, right. And final card for Sagittarius. That's not me doing it, that's the energies, just FYI. They are being very peculiar. The moon is currently in Aries, and the North Node's in Aries, so there's sort of an exaggeration of the connection to the intuition and the unseen, and they're being quite frenetic. Two sixes, just realised that. Two sixes, two aces. So that's like the self and the other. There's stuff coming into balance, stuff coming into unity. Let's do... maybe they don't want a card for you, Sagittarius. That's a shame. We've got rebirth. Cut the deck. Cracking open of a new frequency, as I was saying. Right, Sagittarius, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed this reading. Be good to yourself, Sag. Be good to those around you. And most importantly, be well until we meet again. Scorpio rising. How you doing, Scorpio? For those of you tapping into the Scorpio energy and it doesn't fall in your first house, look to the house that it does fall in. Look to the themes of that house and apply those themes to the messages that come through. It's as if that Scorpio energy, with all the connotations of your natal chart, planets, astrological points, themes, have now all moved to the first house. Regardless of whether Scorpio is your rising sign or not, this full moon in Gemini is in conjunct your Scorpio energy. Now, this isn't one of the main traditional aspects. I love this aspect, even though it's a little bit difficult, right? Okay, and why is it difficult? Well, Scorpio, you're dealing with six different energies all trying to work together, and that can be a bit discombobulating. It can be a bit frustrating, a bit of crossed wires. Oh, two major arcana straight off the bat. And goodness me, Scorpio, what's going on? And right, so Scorpio, you are fixed water. You are yin, night in nature. Gemini is mutable air, and it's yang, day in nature. So those six different energies trying to get on the same page, as I said, can be a bit discombobulating, crossed wires, a bit frustrating. The way that I try and visualize in conjunct energy at its peak, right? Is hopping on one leg, moving your hand around in a circle. Oh, that's quite a lot of cards. Moving your hand around in a circle on your stomach and then patting your head with your other hand. This can be quite difficult to do. This involves a lot of multitasking. But once you do, you notice your brain starts doing different things because you're activating different neural pathways. So once you sort of understand that it might be a bit of a discombobulating, frustrating, bit more hard work energy. But the other side of it is once those energies, you realize, you appreciate the difference of those energies and getting them to work together, that's when you're creating outside of traditional norms, right? It's very unconventional energy. It's very maverick energy, the in conjunct. I'm a big fan. Right. I'm pulling cards for 3 piles. The first pile is the lead up to this new moon, full moon itself. And that's from the new moon in Gemini that we had in Gemini season. So the last 6 months, what's your journey been like? What have you been working on? Where are you at before this full moon? And then the second pile is the energy of the full moon itself. I like to look at lunations as portals for downloads to come through, right? The integration of how all of those planets are talking to each other at the exact time of the full moon. This is when we get a download come through. So even if you're watching this after the event, you're not missing out, because I focus more on what energy is coming through that will then unfold over the next 6 months, taking us up to the new moon in Gemini next year. It could also be things linked into what's going on for you around the time of the full moon. But as I said, I like to focus on the energy download that you're receiving into your vessel. The third pile, apologies, is how all of this energy is manifesting moving forward. Speaking of the second pile though, If you want a more in-depth understanding of what that narrative, what that blueprint download is all about, there's a collective reading for this moon. I love the collective readings. It's when I get a chance to be a bit more esoteric. I get to go into things in more depth. And so there's sort of, I talk more about the soul's journey, more channeled messages come through, and I break down the astrology in way more detail, as well as do a collective reading for with tarot. If you notice here, we've got a lot of there's 2 oracle cards here. There's lots underneath my phone where I'm looking at the chart. So that energy is still coming through. I will be doing a oracle reading after the event, so it's sort of like to see what comes up in the news around the full moon, and then incorporating all of that with the messages that came through with the oracle reading. And the box card is super important, and I'm really glad that it's wanted to be the most present out of all of the cards, because it is an acknowledgement of breaking away from limitations that this full moon is bringing in. You know, all those sort of layers of constructs and ideas that we think are us, but are actually these things that are blocking us, right? So that's the 3 piles that I'm pulling cards for. I will also be pulling a card for the conjunction of Venus and the South Node, which is happening either on the 28th or the 29th of November. So either the day after the day after, or I just want to tell you that the energies have been quite insane with these readings. So do bear with me if I go a little quiet, because I'm just trying to, there's been a lot of energy, very frenetic energy. We're dealing with Gemini here in my arms, in my hands. So there's a lot going on. What was I saying? Yeah, so I'm going to be pulling a separate card for that conjunction with Venus and the South Node. Why is that important? Well, Venus rules Libra, therefore is ruling the South Node. And so we're meeting there. Those 2 meeting together is a very pivotal point. It's the first of two that are going to happen with the nodes being in Libra and Aries. If you want more of a depth of understanding of that nodal axis, I've done an all 12 signs video series. It's in its own playlist. So if you go to the playlist on the channel page, you'll find it really easily. And I break down for all of the 12 signs what that's all about. Also in the introductions of that series, I break down the main themes around North Node in Aries, South Node in Libra, the combination of the 2, and the conjunction of the North Node with Chiron that's going to be happening later on next year. So that's what's going to be going on. Right, let's talk astrology. Okay, the cards have come out really quickly compared to a lot of the other signs. So there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to try and wrap up the astrology really quickly because the tarots wanted to come out. So this is for Scorpio rising. Where is this happening? This is happening in your 8th house. This is the outside world's resources. This is the give and take between you and the outside world. Time, money, things, energy, intimacy, right? This can be sort of big chunks of money. So it can be bonuses, can be commissions, taxes, mortgages, inheritance, both 3D and cosmic inheritance. The 8th house, very magical, right? I always mention that the fact that Edgar Cayce, one of the most well-known psychics, had a stellium in the 8th house. So it's that give and take between you and the universe, you and source, as well as your relationship dynamics, right? Do you give too much? Do you take too much? Do you not feel supported by the outside world? Do you feel you're taking too much from the outside world? All of these things tend to show up in the 8th house. It is a house of transformation. So this is a big energy coming through. It's often how sort of the relationship dynamics of the 7th house show up. And so, like, as I said, this is in conjunct your Scorpio energy. So it can feel a bit discombobulating, but it's a full moon. It's a completion energy. I find that there are 3 main themes around what shows up with a full moon. Sometimes all 3 show up, sometimes none, maybe 1, maybe 2. It all depends, right? But the other stuff shows up as well. But this is the kind of like the main vibes that I see show up, right? The first one is trigger time, right? Why do the police stations, hospitals and schools get really rowdy? Why does the collective get a bit rowdy? Why are we howling at the moon? Well, this is because the full light of the sun, the clarity, the vision, the purpose, the will, the conscious understanding is on our unconscious space, the moon, right? So the fullest of the full. How do we nourish ourselves? How do we nourish others? Our intuitive and emotional body. And most importantly, how are our needs being met or not being met? So a full moon can, if say, So this is why people get triggered. This is why you might get triggered. I find even though it's difficult, right? I see it as an offering and a blessing from the luminaries. They're like, hey, there's this thing in your unconscious mind that if you just left your own devices, you might not have noticed so strongly, right? And here it is. Here's this trigger for you to then bear witness to it, to sit with it, to acknowledge it, to make friends with it, to integrate, and like clear some stuck energy in your energetic field. So even though it might be a bit difficult, it's really just a blessing. It's an offering. It's a lesson to help us integrate and become more in alignment with our soul's frequency underneath the trauma and the limiting beliefs. Second thing is a situation may show up that would have previously triggered you, but you move through it and you're not triggered. Why is this important? Well, the universe tends to send these things along when we're ready, when it's usually when we've done a lot of integration work, which tends to, not everybody does this, but on the majority, we tend to focus on the mental side of it, of like the thinking, of working through trauma, working through limiting beliefs. But that isn't a full holistic integration, right? So when this situation might show up, it's allowing your physical body, your emotional body, your mind, your soul to move through this, specifically the physical body, I find. And we go, hey, everyone, guys, we're okay, we're safe. Right, we're okay. It's not the worst case scenario that you may have thought that every situation like that that's linked into that trauma response is going to be. And so it's a great release point. The third thing is a completion, a celebration, vitality, right? Lots of energy, heightened intuition can be a celebration of your needs being met, of you meeting other people's needs in a healthy way, of a nourishment, a deep nourishment. So that's what we can get with a full moon, as well as that completion of everything that you've been working on, whether that's triggers, traumas, and less away from those sort of more sort of positive aspects. Not that they're not positive, but you know what I mean. So and then being able to celebrate and feel good about yourself. So those are the sort of the three main themes that I see show up for full moon. So with the 8th house, it can bring about a trigger linked into the give and take between you and the outside world of not feeling supported. I often find with the 8th house, it's always about make sure that you're in alignment with yourself and your understanding of your own resources, that you actually have everything that you need within you, rather than say clawing at what other people have or situations, or I can't start this until this and this happens and I get this, right? It's moving away from those limitations and acknowledging that fullness of self, right? And then through that vibrational frequency, you then draw towards the resources from the outside world. This could also be situations where you previously felt not supported, where you previously felt that you were perhaps taken advantage of, or whatever it is, or you've taken too much, but now you're in alignment, so you're more in balance, coming up and releasing a lot of that. Again, the celebration could be getting a bonus, could be getting the sense of resources from the outside world, of feeling supported, of feeling nourished by the outside world and what it has to offer for you, and having that really in alignment. So these are the sort of things that can show up. This can be a completion level of unintegrated relationship dynamics. As I said, giving too much, taking too much, codependency, all of those sorts of things, and then bringing in new frequencies that are more in alignment with a healthier, integrated, more quantum relationship dynamic. This can also be an activation of your relationship with spirit, right? Of source, or whatever it is that's sort of like that higher being. Right, that higher framework, higher matrix, and the communication with that can be an activation and completion of that one as well. What else could show up with the 8th house? Deep transformation, completion of a certain transformative cycle, opening up new frequencies in order to take you to the next level. Okay, let's talk some astrology. Okay, so Gemini, ruled by Mercury. So wherever the ruler is of a sign is influencing the sign that it rules. So we want to look to where Mercury is, and Mercury's in the sign of Sagittarius, which for you is in your 2nd house of your values, your resources. Most importantly, how you value yourself, the things that you value, your skills, your tools, in order to bring in regular money. It's more sort of like regular income, and how you manifest, right? So the sun is now moved into there. As of, I think it was just yesterday evening. Mars is going to be moving in there. It's going to be conjunct the sun at the time of this full moon, along with Ceres. So you've got a lot of vitality and vision in your sense of value. Mercury's been there for a while. It's very closely conjunct to the galactic center, which is the center of the Milky Way, right? So getting high vibrational downloads that's feeding into Mercury. Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius, there's a sense of just knowing. It's not necessarily about the small details, and it's just an element of faith that's linked around Sagittarius, and also this sort of generosity of spirit that other people may understand you even if you're not getting all of your points across. But with this conjunction with the galactic center, it feels like that's feeding into Mercury, that's helping you understand your sense of value, that's then impacting your frequency in relation to the outside world, right? So getting into realignment of this higher perspective from the galactic center, rather than sort of the more heavy earthbound trauma responses and limiting beliefs around scarcity and fear. Mercury is also making very exact aspects with Neptune and the North Node and the South Node, so very powerful that that they are this exact, right? Mercury's squaring Neptune, which for you is in your fifth house of your creation energy, right? Your joy, the house of joy, fun, amusement, play. This is linked into children, inner child, as well as birthing creative things into the world. It can be linked into romance and short-term dating. Neptune's there. If you're regulars, you know from the Scorpio new moon that Neptune was actually trining that moon. So the way that I talked about it was as an activation of inspiration and cohesion of a new frequency, a new reality sent from source energy that is instilling in the sense of self, right? That new moon in Scorpio. And now we've got this square. So it's more manifestation energy of activating and bringing friction into something in order to create in this 3D realm of that square with Mercury, of like Neptune feeding Mercury. The idea, this new reality that you're then instigating in this in with the activation codes coming from the galactic center of your creative energy, your joy, feeding that into the way that you value yourself, and as I said, shifting that dynamic with the 8th house and bringing in a sense of celebration. As I said, Mercury's also trine the North Node, exactly, sextiling the South Node in very harmonious aspects. So this is linking into where you're headed in terms of your work, health and routine, what you're releasing from your unconscious mind, from that hidden space that can be anxiety, depression, grief, all of that. So Mercury is really facilitating a very harmonious and manifesting energy that's then feeding into this full moon. That yes, it's a completion, but it's still the energy that we're then going to be bringing into us for the next 6 months to the new moon in Gemini next year. So because we're dealing with Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius, Mercury is being influenced by Jupiter. So where is Jupiter? Jupiter is in the sign of Taurus. This is opposite your Scorpio energy. This is in your one-to-one relationships, where you're providing wisdom and expansion and elevation in what those relationships mean to you. Jupiter's still retrograde, and so it's influencing the fact, the 8th house, as I said, is how those relationship dynamics can show up from the 7th, and making sure that the wisdom and the expansiveness of who you are, what it is that you want from what brings you joy in those relationships, is then feeding into your sense of value, and making sure that that's in alignment. This frequency, the new frequency that Jupiter's bringing more confidence and wisdom in your understanding of those relationships, into your sense of value. So clearing out some blockages and limiting beliefs around your value, which may be linked into that one-to-one intimacy dynamic. But Jupiter's in Taurus. Who rules Taurus? Well, that's Venus. And Venus is over in Libra, which is in your 12th house. So Venus moving through the 12th house. I remember when Venus moved through my 12th house this year. I've got it in Cancer. So I was eating my feelings quite a lot. It was fine, it was great, I've come out the other side of it, but transits of the 12th house can have a heaviness to them. They can be quite difficult, even though it's Venus, right? So Venus is helping move through there, helping bring a sense of harmony, but to your 12th house. But it's with the South Node, so there is a heaviness here with Venus in the 12th, right? The South Node can drain, and with that draining, it's clearing out old energy, heavy energy, in order to transform and bring depth to your understanding of your hidden house, right? This is the mental constructs of who you are. There can be anxiety, depression, grief, and loss, but also the magic underneath all of that. So it's a very powerful transit, and Venus is actually governing basically the whole chart, right? Now Mars will have moved out of Scorpio, so when planets are in their their own sign. They are not beholden to anybody. They're running free, right? But all the other planets link back to Venus. So actually, even though this is an 8th house transit, right, of the give and take between you and the outside world's resources, your understanding of what that's all about is coming from Venus. So Venus is helping mitigate and move through limiting beliefs and trauma responses around that dynamic. There's a lot of trauma in the 8th house, I find. So Venus is really helping bring balance, even if that might be discombobulating in her journey doing that. So essentially, yeah, Venus is playing a big role in this moon. Right, the final thing that I'm going to mention, there's lots more going on in the astrology, so do check out that collective reading if you feel so inclined. But the sun and the moon, Mars, right, so the sun is conjunct Mars, conjunct Ceres, and it's square Saturn, so is the moon. So this Saturnian energy, this is why there's like 3 prongs to this moon, right? It's a bit more complicated than a lot of the other moons that we've had. We've got this very playful, curious energy of Gemini, right? And we've got the faith and the sort of hope of Sagittarius, this generosity of spirit of Sag. And then we've got the galactic energy coming in, that's rebooting and activating bigger codes that give us more higher perspective. And then Saturn's coming along, squaring this, so bringing things into manifestation that might feel a bit discombobulating, but it's calling us to our integrity, our legacy is being activated here between how you value yourself, how the outside world values you, as well as your regular income and your relationship dynamic with the resources of the outside world, being in square in alignment with your creation energy, right, with how you bring joy. So there's a seriousness here, there's a responsibility here with Saturn being in the 5th, but it's really strengthening your foundations in the long term, giving you a strength of character in terms of your own authority, and then that's allowing you to walk with your integrity and activate legacy energy. Okay, right, so that's everything. I mean, there's more, but you know, look to where your sun and your moon are in your natal chart. Look to the houses that they're in, the themes of those houses. They get activated every time with every lunation, so that will make it a little bit more personal to you in regards to your own personal experience beyond this general reading. Right, we've had the yang day action side of the reading, the go, the stimulation, the extrovert, all the stuff we do in the day, bam, 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 bam. Now I'm going to go quiet. I'm going to soften my mind. The energies are going to do energy work. They're going to move the cards around, and then they'll put them into the 3 piles, and I'll come back round and I'll bring in the tarot with the astrology. I call you to soften your mind as well. You've just had loads of information. Let it all settle in your unconscious, and just see what intuitive hits come up for you. Okay, Scorpio. Right, so this is the lead up to this Gemini moon. We've got the Nine of Wands. We've got the Page of Cups crossing it with the Hermit on the top. Okay, so the Nine of Wands, right? This is, this is quite an appropriate card coming up for the 8th house of just feeling drained, feeling exhausted. There isn't feeling supported, feeling like you've got to be the one doing all the things, defending all the things. But there's a sort of, you're burnt out, you're battle weary. There's a real conviction here of making sure that you understand what you have, what you're protecting, what it is that you have within you that you're offering to the outside world, but is just feeling like that you've just been a bit battered and bruised with that, and again, like not feeling that support from the outside world, not feeling that support in relationship dynamics, that there's an element of, as I said, it's a very alone card. And for the 8th house, which is about the outside world's resources, this is really like there's a frustration there. There's like, when will this end? When will I be able to rest? When will I be able to support and be in like co-creation rather than on the defense mode? With this card, I do always say, like, do you need to be on the defense mode? Do you need to engage in that construct of conflict, right? Because there is an element of conflict of being on the defense. So do you have to engage with it, even if it is legitimately a situation? Do you have to let that that power take over you? Right, I'm just saying that. However, right, so it's being crossed by the Page of Cups, which is saying you've been trying to find new ways of engaging with this energy, right? Page of Cups is very creative, it's very inspirational, it's very playful, it's very, there's an emotionalness to it, but it's bringing in different messages. It feels like there may have been some mixed messages coming through that have confused you even more, as well as just generally like trying to navigate outside of this from a place of love, right? Water is linked into love. You've got the Two of Cups coming up as well, so there is this element of needing emotional support, right? And there is curiosity with the Page of Cups, right? They are talking to a fish in a cup. So this is saying that you've been trying to find a different way that is beyond this, right? So talking to a fish in a cup is like beyond the norm. It's like something that's a bit unconventional. So with the page crossing, it's saying you've been working on this. It hasn't quite manifested yet. It's still been a journey, but you've been trying, and you've been trying to, because pages are essentially apprentices, there we go, goodness me, my brain. They're very useful. They're the youngest court card, so it is acknowledging the element of bringing in a new dynamic. And it's come with the Hermit. The Hermit is about going inward, spending a lot of time in reflection, of figuring out who you are, what is your individual being, right? Trying to find a higher perspective from it, trying to do deep healing as well, because the star is in the lantern, and that is linked into deep healing, as well as finding a way of being able to hope and dream again outside of this dynamic, right? And it's certainly been a very sort of personal inward journey that you've had to be engaging on, right? But also great wisdom there. There's great wisdom with the Hermit. They are standing on a mountain. It is about a higher perspective, but it is sort of very individualistic energy, right? And it's like this is calling on this sort of the Hermit has its resources within itself, right? And then it is in contemplation of that, and then it has that to then offer other people. So it's really feels that the Hermit is trying to get beyond this defensive mode, right? This figure knows is very committed to what it has to offer, and the Hermit is very sure of itself in what it has to offer. So I really do like this combination of cards, even if I'm getting a difficult energy from it, that it hasn't been an easy journey, and you're in that process. This is almost being isolated as well from the outside world, of really having to figure out, what does this mean to me, what's going on here in terms of your relationship dynamic with the outside world, in terms of your time, money, energy. And it feels like there's been some draining. You've been trying to navigate that from a more flowing space, while finding deep wisdom in what it is that you're doing at the same time. We're going to get a look at this big shift, right? So we've gone from very cool colors to lots of sunshine showing up. We've got the Lovers, we've got the Sun, right, and we've got the Magician. So the Lovers is Gemini, the Magician is Mercury. So we've got some big energy showing up for you, Scorpio, and with the Sun as well, like you couldn't get any more vitality coming in. So the Lovers card, as I said, Gemini energy. This is about integration and being able to make the right decisions when you're at crossroads. So you've got the masculine, feminine, and spirit with the it kind of looks like a volcano. It's more of a volcano, I think, than a mountain. So but it's still like this element of this peak, this pinnacle that you're reaching in order to make the right decisions at important times. So the Nine of Wands is a very sort of stuck mentality energy, whereas the Lovers is Gemini. It's very fluid. It's being able to adapt to the reality around you. And we've got the Sun card. This is vitality. This is vibrance. This is joy. This is a sense of rebirth, right? And a sense of, you know, there's the inner child here. There's a sense of purity. There's a sense of vitality coming up. This is your willpower. There's a real shift of dynamics. And with the Magician, it's then saying, hey, you have all the resources that you need within you. But what I'm more getting is like this acknowledgement that you can manifest with the resources from the outside world. Like that is activating a new journey rather than being internal and defensive. This is outward and vibrant. So we're thinking about the 8th house in terms of the relationship dynamics. This is saying that there's more harmony coming in, there's more joy coming in, and with that relationship dynamic, you're more empowered. And the manifestation energy that's coming through is based off of this exchange in those relationships. Because you think about Jupiter being in the 7th, right? So this is a shift of being on the defensive of your singularity to being in your flow, to being in a state of abundance. With that Magician energy, very creative energy. So rather than limiting yourself to a certain framework, this is bringing in different frameworks. And then, how lovely for the 8th house, we've got the Queen of Pentacles and we've got the Two of Cups. And the Queen of Pentacles, very nurturing, very nourishing, very supportive of abundance, right? Queens, for me, they cultivate, they observe, they strategize, they bring depth to what it is that they're doing. And it's only with that depth of understanding and observational energy are the kings able to take action that actually serves you in the long run. So with the Queen of Pentacles showing up for the 8th house of this new vibrational frequency with you in the outside world is more supportive and in union with self. You've got the Lovers and the Two of Cups where they mirror one another. Got the masculine, feminine and spirit, and the Kundalini energy or the Caduceus, which both represent deep healing. But this is honor, this is respect, this is dignity, this is on the same level. It's a far cry from this Nine of Wands where you're feeling very defeated and very alone. You've got a lot of union cards showing up. So for those of you in relationships, this could be a real shift in dynamic with the outside world, but also on a one-to-one level of feeling supported, of feeling a sense of respect and honor. And equality with what's coming in. There's a rebalancing away from a defensive, alone, worn out frustration to this beautiful expansion of this frequency. And I'm thinking about the 12th house where Venus is, where there can be imbalance, right? Because we're trying to integrate that with Venus moving through there with the South Node is about bringing balance to the forefront. We've got balance here. We've got balance here. It's really playing a very pivotal role in making sure that your unconscious mind is being cleared out of that defensive energy that's actually giving you a bit more peace, but also being able to activate and take action and manifest in the world with the resources of the outside world. This is nourishing and bringing a sense of support and love, right? For some of you, it might be a deepening of love of a certain relationship dynamic. Right, let's pull Let's pull a card for Venus conjunct the South Node for Scorpio. Got the King of Wands, like this. So this, my first thought that came into my head with Venus and the South Node is burning up a lot of clutter in the unconscious mind, right? And then activating your soul energy. All right, the kings, as I was saying, the queens help establish nourishment and depth, and the kings are then able to take action upon that. This is very independent, very creative energy, very confident and passionate energy. It's very, but I'm really getting just the ability to burn up, to be able to go, no, not that. We're heading in this direction. This is where we're focusing. We're not getting distracted by this. We're being very direct. We're being very certain. We're being very confident in your, there's like authority coming in with the King of Wands into your 12th house. Think about that Aries axis with the North Node opposite, but with that South Node in the 12th house of what's hidden from you, I really feel like an activation of your magic, and also just a real ability to draw a line under the sun and say, that's not taking us in the right direction. That's just being burnt up. I keep wanting to say being burnt up, being transformed. And when fire transforms, it turns the ash into minerals and resources that then feed that unconscious mind with nourishment. Right. Okay, let's get to clarifier. Let's see what wants to come out from the First Light Tarot for you, Scorpio. We've got the High Priestess and strategy. So I'm thinking about that King of Wands. It's just like, nope. Right. So we've got the High Priestess, perception, hidden powers, reflection of ideas and knowledge. So like, I'm just thinking about that 12th house Venus energy of just, you've been drawing, like there's this just a deeper knowing of what's coming through. Okay. I keep meaning to go and figure out what these are and then write them on, because this might be a particular nebula or that is linked into a past life energy that's coming through for you, especially with that 12th house energy with Venus being there, of like really activating your just that deeper sense of knowing and that comfort within that, rather than feeling that burnt out. The High Priestess isn't about that. She's about this deep intuition of like everything that you're drawing towards you is in fact a manifestation of what your higher self is asking for, and that when we understand that, we can then release a lot of those lessons. I've got strategy as well, which I like. So there's as I said, that element of what you've been transmuting, what you've been working through, like rather than being on the defensive, finding a different strategy. Okay. Let's pull a card from the numerology deck. Let's see what wants to come through. There's two. Wants to come through for Scorpio. Intuition. It's making me think of everything over in Pisces, which is your creation energy, because there's a lot of there's that square with Neptune and there's the square with Saturn, of really activating a vibrational frequency that is more in alignment with your house of joy, where you understand what's going on, rather than getting lost in the water and swamped and seeing it from only one perspective. It's like really activating your ability to broaden your perspective, right? Reflection of ideas, knowledge, perception, a shift in your perception. There's such a difference in just in terms of the colors of the cards as we move forward, of moving away from this coolness, from this gray. Like we all need to go through those phases for sometimes the light to then come forward, right, Scorpio? I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoy this message. And if you did, don't forget to hit that like button. Be good to yourself, Scorpio. Be good to those around you. And most importantly, be well until we meet again.